Thank you. Okay, let's go in. בוא תצלם אותי שנייה.
Any questions?
Yeah. Nobody asks anything. My name is Oded. I'm from the Israeli Starbase 972, which is the Israeli Star Trek fan club.
All right.
There are a lot of...
Is this working? No? No? Good, thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead. You're from who?
I'm from...
Starbase.
Yeah, the Israeli Star Trek fan club. There are a lot of Trekkies all around the Tel Aviv Cinematek.
Yeah.
Many of us wonder what's your stand about the cancellation of Star Trek Enterprise?
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about the cancellation of the series. I'm focusing on the fact that that the entire franchise lasted 40 years, and I think that's a remarkable fact of the events today. I'm not surprised that they're going to give it a rest or take it off the air for a while. Maybe it's a smart thing to do, but I think more important is the fact that it lasted 40 years.
Do you think it's going to last another 40 years?
I'm not allowed to make predictions in public.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Monisyondak, editor of the website All About Jewish Theater, which is a 2 years old website, global website.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Can you help me?
My name is Monisyondak, and I'm editor of All About Jewish Theater.
Oh, yes, okay.
And I would like to ask you, if I know it all out, and I know that you're very much involved in relationships and developing the Jewish culture
Yes.
in the United States.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about this?
About my relationship to Jewish culture in the United States. Yes. I have been the host of a series of radio broadcasts called Jewish Short Stories from Eastern Europe and Beyond. I have also been the host of a series of musical programs of American Jewish music going all the way back to the Revolution, 1700s in the United States. A program of music put together by the Milken Foundation that asked me to host a series for them, which I've done. I have produced a television movie and acted in it called Never Forget, which was a story about a true story about a Holocaust survivor named Al Mermelstein who lives in Southern California and who fought a case against an organization called the Institute for Historical Review, an organization of Holocaust deniers. And he fought a court battle against them in Los Angeles Superior Court and won that case in 1979. The significance of the case, most importantly, I think, was the fact that the Holocaust entered into American jurisprudence as a legal fact for the first time in 1979, which was 34 years after the war ended. I have taken roles in Jewish productions whenever I could find them, whenever they've been offered to me. I performed as Morris Meyerson, Golda Meir's husband, in A Woman Called Golda, which was filmed here in Israel. I was here in Tel Aviv for about a month working on that project. And surprised a lot of people by portraying Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof, the skinniest Tevye ever. And on and on, more. Yes.
My name is Noah. I'm from the Whitenet news site. Can you tell us some more about the Los Angeles project and your involvement in it?
And the Los Angeles project?
The partnership project.
I'm having trouble hearing.
The project that
brought me here?
Brought you here.
Oh, okay. Well, it's very flattering to be asked to come to conduct a master class. The assumption is you know what you're doing, and you can tell people about it. And a trip to Israel was due. The last time I was here was about 10 years ago, and we don't like to go that long without visiting Israel. My wife and I were here 10 years ago, and her son was preparing for his bar mitzvah. And his grandfather asked if we would join a trip here, and we were here for that purpose. First time I came was in 1971, and then I was here again in, I guess, around 81 for the Woman Called Golda. production. In this case, the Federation Alliance, a partnership, invited me to come to teach a couple of master classes, to conduct a couple of master classes, one in acting and one in directing, which I found very flattering and enticing, and decided to come. And then I said, I think I should look at some recent work, some recent film work by Israeli artists, and so that I could feel more current with what's being done here. And I saw several films. My wife and I sat and watched, I think, 4 films. And we were really, really, truly very, very impressed. Very impressed. We watched Walk on Water, Kadosh, Keep Not Silent, Late Marriage, Summer of Avia, yeah, thank you. And we were really, really quite impressed, and happy to be able to meet some of these very good filmmakers and very good performers. The work is excellent, excellent work. Not only in terms of craftsmanship, but in terms of content, subject matter being done, very personal subject matter, very subject matter very pertinent to the culture here, which I was very interested in seeing. So I'm very touched by that. My ego descended somewhat when I saw the level of the work. You know, it's very good. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm Erez from the daily newspaper Aviv, and I'd like to ask you, what would you say was a part of this visit that you most enjoyed?
I had a great time yesterday at Beit Zvi School. The students were energetic, welcoming, and a great sense of humor, which I always appreciate. It's nice to have your joke laughed at. The aspirations, the hopes that I sense in the room with all these young people, is something I identify with a lot. I recognize that process. I identify with it. I went through that process, and I was very happy to be there. Also, the Contemporary Art Museum in Herzliya was my wife and I collect contemporary art, and she's a vice chair at Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. So we are avid contemporary art seekers, and we go to museums and look at work wherever and whenever we can. And we were impressed with the collection there and the energy that's taking place, as well as the Jewish Museum here. There's a wonderful collection of all kinds of art, including contemporary. So we've enjoyed that very much, and enjoyed meeting some of the artists. I had lunch yesterday with Elio Alexander, who made Keep My Silent. It was a wonderful conversation. Last night with Guillaume Agora and her husband, the uncle, had a wonderful conversation with them about their work here and about theater work they do here. I sat in on a rehearsal in New York a few months ago. I was not able to stay for the performance. We were leaving town and we were going to miss the performance, but she was there. Guillaume Agora was there acting at a place called Symphony Space on the Upper West Side of New York, and I sat in on a rehearsal to watch some of the work that she was doing on a project called Kaddish. It was very exciting work to see. Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Lee. I'm from the Starbase.
I'm sorry, you have to speak up. I have a hearing loss.
My name is Lee. I'm from the Starbase 972 magazine, and you came here I mainly saw and to have contact with the community of art and film.
Yes.
But you have inspired a lot of young and old scientists through your character, through yourself. And do you have something to add to those young Israeli scientists who
Yes.
have been inspired by you?
You're right. There is a lot of that as a part of my life. I'm very often approached by people who say I'm in the sciences because of Star Trek. I was inspired to go into astronomy or chemistry or engineering or whatever. One of the proud things about the Star Trek project, at least the ones that I was involved with, is that the crew, we must never forget that the crew of the Enterprise, the spaceship, are all highly educated people, very professional people. Probably all have PhDs in their subjects. And I think that's an important example to set for young people, that if you have hopes and dreams of accomplishing something important, it's good to get good training, and as much training as you possibly can, so that you don't expect the things to just sort of land in your lap and you'll figure out how to do it. You should qualify yourself, prepare yourself for opportunities when they arrive. And I often hear, and I'm very flattered to hear, I'm very grateful to hear from people who say that we had a positive effect on their lives in the sciences as well as in the arts. Yes?
I'm sorry to keep you on the Star Trek theme here for a second, but I would like to know if you have any thoughts of the connection between the Jewish-Israeli state today and some of the ideology that the Enterprise crew portrayed.
Yeah.
I tricked you into that one.
Well, I'm hopeful. Let me talk personally about politics for just a very brief moment. Very brief
You
moment.
wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm extremely hopeful now, frankly, that Arafat is gone. That maybe we in the United States think that maybe there's an opportunity for something positive to happen. My connection with Star Trek is a comfortable one in that it is essentially, theoretically, a peacemaking mission. And I'm terribly concerned about violence anywhere in the world. I don't care who it is that suffers. Suffering is human suffering is human suffering. And it touches me very deeply. I'm probably, if asked about the project that I'm most proud of in connection with Star Trek, I would say it would be Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, a film that I wrote and directed, and in which there's no violence. There's no bad person in Star Trek 4. There's no heavy, there's no villain in Star Trek 4. The drama grows out of misunderstanding, lack of information, lack of education. But there's no evil intent. There's nobody trying to do anything nasty or negative to anybody. I'm very proud of that, and I think there's something to study and to be said about the fact that, as far as I know, it's still the most successful of all the Star Trek films, of all 10.
And not to mention my personal favorite.
Your favorite too. So we have a dialogue. So those are my feelings about what Star Trek means to me in the larger, in the world sense, and, having to do with my own opinions. Yes?
My name is Ori, I'm also from the Starbase Fan Club. Religion is practically non-existent in the Star Trek universe.
Yes, true.
Vision of the future. And are you comfortable with that decision? Are you comfortable with that vision?
Well, let me start by saying that there is no religion in Star Trek by choice. Gene Roddenberry absolutely would not have it. The creator of Star Trek. By the way, it's interesting that he calls himself the creator, not the producer. I don't think I have to say anything else about that. Anybody? Yes.
My name is Rayut. I'm also from the
I
Starbase.
can't hear you. I'm sorry.
My name is Rayut. I'm also from the Starbase fan club. I was wondering if you're planning on expanding you're expanding into new areas of interest and so on. If you're planning on doing something else because you're already a really multi.
My creative work now is all about photography. It is self-contained. I can manage it on my own. I don't need to wait for studio approvals or large budgets or casts or other people. It's not a collaborative medium for me. It is my own. I do it when and where I choose, as much as I choose, and if I choose not to, I don't. There's no responsibility involved. My life, my private life is very important to me. Private time is very important to me. And with my wife, we do a lot of traveling. We have a lot of wonderful relationships in several cities. And she, as I think I mentioned, is a vice chair at a museum in Los Angeles, and that keeps her active and busy in the arts. She's a former actress who I met when she was a student of mine, 40 years ago. Slip. And the photography is for me it's an art form. I do what I consider black and white fine art photography. I've had some adventures with it. 2 years ago I published a book called שואה, which was a book of photographs of women, some nude, some partially nude, and some wearing tefillin, and my essay on the subject of the feminine aspect of God. And as you probably have heard, there was some controversy about it in some areas in the United States. I was actually banned in a couple of places, told, don't bring that book in here. And my latest project is a collection of large-bodied women, photographs of large-bodied women called Maximum Beauty, opening in New York on June 2nd.
Very good choice.
You've seen them, the images?
No, not yet.
Oh, good, okay.
But as such.
Well, they're on my website, LeonardNimoyPhotography.com. They're on the website. Yes. Yes.
My name is Dubi. I'm from Icon.
Hello.
It's the Israeli science fiction convention. Would you consider coming to Israel for a science fiction convention?
Sorry.
How often do you
Once a year.
Annually?
Yeah.
What time of year?
Sukkot. It's like October.
It's not out of the question. I do appear at Star Trek conventions. I just came from one in Germany.
Yeah, the question is if you're not sick and tired of it. We would like to have you in the convention very, very much.
You'd be the first
we don't want
guest.
to be part
The first guest, really?
Ever.
Oh, really?
Guest number, crew member.
How many people come to these conventions?
around 15
Thousands.
How many?
Thousands.
Whatever
Thousands.
you count, everyone.
And you've had no guests?
No.
We've had authors, but
Not media.
No actors.
Say again?
we've had book authors.
Book
also.
authors?
Yes.
Who, for example?
Orson Scott Card.
Mhm.
Neil Gaiman.
Well, get in touch with me.
What?
Get in touch.
Get in touch with me. Let's see if we can make it happen. Yes.
My name is Niv, I'm a Star Trek fan. I want to ask, what do you think about the cancellation of Enterprise?
That was the very first question that was asked, and what I said was I'm focusing on the fact that we lasted 40 years.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Aviv from Energy Aviv. It seems that in Star Trek there is a culture, a universal culture with no nationalities within the human race. As a Jew and I think a Zionist, what do you think about this state of things?
What do I think about?
This state of things, that the universal culture.
The mixed culture.
With no nationality.
Yeah. Well, we take it as a norm in Star Trek. In fact, the original concept for the Spock character, looking alien and being visible often on the Enterprise, the idea was that the audience should understand that we are not a ship populated strictly by humans. There are people from other races, other planets on this ship. Not only other planets, but there are blacks, there are Asians, etc. And there should be a good mix of male-female as well. The network, you might find this interesting, the network, NBC, was originally trepidatious about the appearance of the Spock character. The original artwork that they put out, photographs of the cast that they put out on brochures advertising this series to potential sponsors. When I got the stuff in the mail because I was now on the NBC mailing list, I realized that they had airbrushed out the elements of my makeup that made me look foreign. They had taken the tips off my ears and they had straightened out my eyebrows. And I learned that they did it because they felt that I looked devilish. And that in what we call in the United States the Bible Belt, the southern states, which tend to be religious, might not welcome a devilish-looking character into their homes on their TV sets. Somebody made that decision, and it held for a while. And when the show went on the air, and I did have pointed ears, and I did have arched eyebrows, and devilish or not, Spock's character became very popular. NBC changed their mind and insisted on having more and more of Spock in the episodes. But these are the things that people react to. These are the things that people think about when they're in those positions where they're trying to protect themselves and protect their jobs. It's the fear of what the reaction might be. And in the arts, if you're fearful, not much very exciting can happen. You know, I was taught as an artist to try to do some of the things, reach out to do some of the things that might frighten you, because there you might find the the most personal, deepest part of yourself to express to others.
What do you think, like, you can say that the show is encouraging universalism and,
Yeah.
Raising the nationality, identity. What do you think about it?
That's very well said. I wish I had said that. That's very good. I say, I wish I had said that. That's very well put. Quote me. Universalism, I like that. Okay, yes.
My name is Boaz. I'm from the Israeli Theater Heritage website. Could you tell us about
Israeli Theater
Heritage
website. What is that?
It's about the Israeli theater heritage in the last 7 years. Since,
I thought maybe that was the case.
no, Abima, the camera.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Could you tell us about a bit about your theater training before Star Trek? What were your aspirations at the time? Who were your major?
I started acting. Are any of you? Some of you folks will be in the session that we're going to do next. Yeah. You'll probably hear me repeat some of these answers. I started acting something accidentally when I was 8 years old. I grew up in Boston in a tenement neighborhood, and there was what we call a community settlement house nearby. It was a place where kids could go after school and on weekends to spend time and be involved in sports and science and classes of various kinds. And they had a little theater. And I was asked to sing a song, which I did. And I could carry a tune, so I was cast in a production of Hansel and Gretel, and I played Hansel in a production of Hansel and Gretel when I was 8. And I continued to work in children's theater for some time. When I was about 16, I was cast in an adult play called Awake and Sing by Clifford Odets. Very powerful social drama piece, an adult piece for the first time, with a good director, good cast. And I became obsessed with the idea of acting. I thought it was a wonderful way to spend your life, to deal with people with social issues. I was very attracted to that. And I continued to work in theater in and around Boston until I left when I was 18. I went to California to go to school, studied acting at the Pasadena Playhouse for a while, then moved into Hollywood and began looking for work, taking classes along the way, and doing odd jobs to support myself and eventually a family, wife and 2 children, for many years. I worked at things other than acting for 15 years before I could finally make a living solely as an actor when Star Trek happened. But prior to that, I was always working as something else. From 1950 to 1960, all kinds of odd jobs. And in 1960, I started teaching acting classes along with my acting. So I did that for about 5 years, and then Star Trek happened, and I was able to make a living as an actor from that point on. But I've always done theater. When I did Star Trek for 3 years, and Mission Impossible for 2, and then I left to do a lot of theater. I spent a lot of time on stage in the 70s, twice on Broadway and all over the United States. In a one-man show called Vincent, about Vincent Van Gogh. In many, many plays, The Man in the Glass Booth, Fiddler on the Roof, Camelot, My Fair Lady, 6 Rooms River View, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Four Poster, Caligula, Death Watch by Jean Genet, all kinds of theater all over the United States. Yes?
Well, Gene Roddenberry is known to be quite charismatic, and I was wondering if you, when you got into this field of Star Trek, did you imagine or conceive that this could grow to be such a phenomenon, such a success?
I said to Gene Roddenberry, you may not know it, but this project is going to last for 40 years. And I will be talking about you in Israel in 2005, and he wouldn't believe me. Anybody? Yes. Yes.
Star Trek is a very idealistic vision of the future, and the TV and movie world are very cynical and ratings-based. And I wonder how TV executives and how network executives received the show while you were involved. Were they malicious? Were they ridiculed the show? Was considered naive?
When the first, when the show, on first air date, which I think was September 6th, 1966, if I remember correctly, September 6th or 8th, something like that, 1966, we had, I think, 3 or 4 episodes ready to go. And the network was given those episodes to choose from, to choose which one should go on the air first. And they chose what I consider a pretty tacky episode that had a creepy monster in it. And I think that gives you an indication of what their thinking was. They thought we would have a monster of the week, you know, some person dressed in a ridiculous costume, a hairy creature, that was attacking people, and we'd have to fight it. Their concept of the show never really was very clear. They never really quite understood what the audience understood, that we were really a show of ideas, not a show of monsters. And as a result, they neglected us, they programmed us badly, they promoted us badly, and canceled us at the end of the second season, gave us worse and worse time slots. There was a big demonstration at the end of the second season when the show was canceled, and a tremendous outpouring of mail to the network, so much so that they finally gave in and they announced on air that the show would be coming back the next season. This was an effort to stop the campaign because they were being inundated with deluge with fan attention. So they put us back on for a third season. It was still a worse time slot, and then we finally died. Now, the show became extremely successful 3, 4, 5 years later in syndication when stations began to understand that there was an audience for it, and they were able to find that audience. They were able to program the show at times when the audience wasn't there to see it. And the show became enormously successful. It became a news event in the 1970s, how popular the show was. And then around 1979, we began making Star Trek movies. So I would say the network and even Paramount, who owned the property, didn't quite appreciate what they had. Paramount began to make movies in 1979 because Star Wars opened in 1977 and did a gigantic business. And somebody at Paramount woke up and said, we've got something like that, don't we? Let's make it. Yes?
My name's Barry. I'm from the Jerusalem Post and the Boston Jewish Advocate. I'm wondering if you can tell us something about your childhood in Boston as a Jewish child. What was the community like? What was the...
My home in Boston?
Growing up as a Jewish child in Boston.
I lived in I mentioned it, in a tenement neighborhood that was essentially Italians and Jews, with a sprinkling of Irish and a couple of blacks. It was a 10 square block area in the inner city of Boston. I think about 70% Italian, about 25% Jews. My grandparents, my parents, and my brother and I all lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My father was a barber, started barbering in Russia, continued barbering in Boston. The shopkeepers in the neighborhood spoke either Italian or Yiddish, depending on who their clientele was. My grandparents could do all their shopping and all their business in Yiddish. My brother and I learned to speak Yiddish because we were living with my grandparents, and that was the way to communicate with them. Russian was the secret language. If they wanted to tell secrets to each other, they would speak in Russian, so we did not learn the Russian language. Synagogues, there were 2 shuls, both Orthodox, in the immediate neighborhood, one just 3 or 4 doors from our home and one about 2 blocks away. We started worshiping at one and then eventually moved to the other, probably because of some dispute that I didn't know about. But you know what they say about every Jew has to have two synagogues, one to worship, the other he wouldn't walk in there if they paid him $1 million. we had that in our family. And the best thing about Boston was that it was a very interesting, energetic city with culture and academia. A lot of schools and a lot of culture. And I was exposed to all of that as a kid, and I became interested. Yes?
Out of all the art forms that you've tried, from writing, playing, the theater and movies, doing radio shows, which one did you like most? And specifically, what item did you like most doing?
Some are more difficult than others. Films take a lot longer. If you're going to direct a film, you could be involved for 2 years. If you're going to do a radio show, you might be involved in 2 days or even 2 hours. So some are a lot more time consuming. The most important important question is, what is the material? What are you doing? Do you care about it? Is it good? Is it well written? Is it thoughtful? Is it meaningful? Is it worth doing? Or are you just doing it because it's a job and you need the money, which is okay too. I mean, those things happen in your lifetime and a career. You can't hold out for everything to be so universally meaningful and powerful. But that finally is the answer to your question. Are you having a good time because you care about it? And is it 2 hours of wonderful work, or is it 2 hours of misery to get through this thing? Or 2 years of misery to get through this thing, in which case you really are suffering. On the other hand, if it's good work, interesting work, doesn't matter how long or how hard the work, you enjoy it, and the time goes by. Yes.
My name is Judith. I'm from Hatzofe. Hatzofe is the Orthodox daily news. And I'm very curious to ask.
Will you speak up a little bit, please?
I would like to know what Judaism means to you today, not after childhood. Today, what does it mean to you?
What does Judaism mean for you today?
What does Judaism mean to me today?
As a Jewish to Israel.
And what about Israel?
What do you feel towards Israel?
Oh, I feel very much at home here. I'm Jewish, always have been, plan to be for quite a while. I had an interesting experience in Germany. I was in Germany for the first time in 1986, I think. I was asked to go there to promote a movie that I had made. And I spent 3 days in Munich. I hated it, frankly. I hated being there. And then I had a lot of invitations to go back, and I said no over the years. And then finally, about 5 or 6 years ago, a number of my colleagues from Star Trek contacted me and said they want you to come to Bonn. There's this wonderful Star Trek convention in Bonn, extremely enthusiastic audience who really are eager about the show, and they're totally receptive and responsive. You should consider going. So I went to our rabbi. My wife's cousin is a Reform rabbi, terrific guy. And I told him what I just told you, and I said, what should I do? And there's my wife. Hi, Susie. So he said, do these people know that you're Jewish? The people in Germany. And I said, probably some do, maybe a lot don't. He said, you should go and identify as a Jew, so that people there will see that this person that they admire is a Jew. And needless to say, I was forced to, I had to go, I had no more choice, you know, when he put it to me that way. And we went, we had an extraordinary time, extraordinary. It was a very moving, very emotional time for me to get the kind of reception that we got vis-a-vis the Jewish issue. And I told him about where this came from, and I'm a Jew, and this, I learned this in shul when I was 8 years old, and they got the whole, I gave them the whole story. And we did it again 2 weeks ago, same city, in Bonn. I was asked to come back. So I think you get the picture. Yes.
How involved are you today in technology, and specifically the internet, computers, networks?
Technology? We use computers. I'm on the internet. I have a website, and I'm on the computer. Yeah, we use email a lot.
But not beyond that. You don't read about it. You read. About
I don't read technological magazines. No. It says my character, the character Spock, has created the sense that I'm scientific by nature. I'm not really. I've been invited to places like MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Caltech, and I'm introduced to brilliant young students who are working on projects that are far beyond my understanding. And these kids will put me through the paces and tell me all about what they're doing. They're explaining this works this way, and this works that way, and this is to accomplish such and such, and this is because of so and so. And then they'll ask me what I think, and I'll say, you're on the right track. That's the best I can do. Okay, yes?
That's two-parter. How do you feel about the Star Trek parodies? And
How do I feel about
Star Trek parodies? Like parodies about it.
Parodies,
Yeah.
yes.
And in specifics, how was it to work on The Simpsons and Futurama?
There was a film called Free Enterprise?
No,
Free Enterprise.
No.
Yes.
Galaxy Quest?
Galaxy Quest, yes, thank you. There's a Free Enterprise too, yeah. There's a Galaxy Quest. I thought Galaxy Quest was very good.
Yeah.
Very good movie, very good movie. I enjoyed it. I laughed loud a lot. The Simpsons is, I think, is done by brilliant people, and I'm flattered. When they call me, I go. It's just fun to work with them and be with them. My work with them is very brief. I'm in and out of there in a half hour. But I always enjoy being involved. And I'm always amazed at how many people comment on it. How many people watch that show a lot. Yes?
How do you feel about all the fan fiction, all the fun culture that surrounds the Star Trek?
How do I feel about what?
Fan fiction and all the fan culture around Star Trek. Do you read it? Like interesting?
The culture around science fiction?
Around Star Trek.
Around Star Trek? I can't say that I read a lot of that. I don't really need to, if you understand what I mean. It's not something that's missing in my life. I have nothing against it. I don't want to sound prejudiced or argumentative, I just don't reach out to that. My needs, our needs, I think, are good theater, good films, and news on television. We're news addicts. Turn on the news, see what's happening. Yes.
Two autobiographies. One's called I Am Not Spock, the other one, years later, I Am Spock.
Yeah.
What happened?
What's now?
Many years ago, in the 1970s, I was in an airport, and a lady recognized me, and she had a small child with her, maybe 8 or 9 years old. And she marched them over in front of me, and she said, "Johnny, look who's here. Look who's standing right in front of you." The little boy looked at me, and there was no recognition. She said, "This is your favorite person. You watch him every week on television." Nothing. And she said, "This is Mr. Spock." And he looked at me, and he still wouldn't buy it. And I understood, of course, that he was confused because I did not have the Spock clothes. I did not have the eyebrows, the ears, the makeup, and so forth. And what would Spock be doing in San Francisco airport anyway? But I found that there was a language issue. What she was really saying was, this is the actor who portrays the character of Spock. But she didn't say that. She said, "This is Mr. Spock." And for the little boy, she was wrong. That was not Mr. Spock standing there. So I found that intriguing, and I was writing a book about my Star Trek experiences at the time, and I wrote a chapter called I Am Not Spock. And I explained that I'm a Jewish kid from Boston. My father was a barber who came from Russia, and I'm et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not Spock. Spock is a character that was written and created by a group of people, including myself. And I began to outline how an actor approaches stepping into or building a character. How does this character walk? How does he talk? What does he wear? What is his social milieu? What is his psychological makeup? All these issues that have to do with that character's existence as different from the actor's. And I thought it was an interesting chapter in helping an audience understand how an actor goes about becoming or building a character to portray over a period of time. And then when it came time to title the book, I chose that chapter title because I thought it was provocative and interesting. And it became a problem because people thought I was rejecting the character. A lot of people read the title and didn't read the book. 20 years later, we were making the final Star Trek film that I was involved with, Star Trek 6. And I was just in a scene with Bill Shatner where we were sort of being reflective, and I said something to him, something like, "Is it possible that you and I have outlived our usefulness?" And knowing that this was the last film that we were going to be involved in, I suddenly realized I was speaking as Nimoy and Spock. So I got the idea to write a book called I Am Spock. That's how it happened. Yes?
Last question.
Last question, yes. Yes?
One of the biggest fears of an actor is to be typecast.
Yeah.
And you obviously work, well, in the shadow of Spock. Would you give up? I mean, if you had a chance, would you give up playing Spock if you know the concept?
You know, that's interesting that you make that statement, that one of the fears of an actor being typecast. I'm not sure that's the mythology, yes. The mythology tells us, oh, don't get typecast. Oh, he or she is typecast. It's not such a terrible thing. Typecasting, being typecast can often be the key to a career. Stop and think about it. I haven't had to look for work since I became Spock. Since Star Trek. I've never needed to worry about where my next job is going to be coming from. And probably because I'm typecast. Because people understand how to use me. People know who I am, and they have a sense of how to use me. It is sometimes frustrating because there may be roles that I might not be considered for. Because people think, well, he's not right for that role because he plays this other kind of role. And they may not have any sense of what my range might be. So that can be a problem. But in terms of career opportunities, I have no complaints. I've had more than my share. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All good things, אתה יודע. ליאור, all good things, אתה יודע.
יש כרטיס לאחד מכם.
יש, מוכרים כאן, מוכרים בקופה.
אתה חייב ל-25 שקלים.
ליאור, חתמתי לספר. ליאור, איזה כיף.
חבר'ה, רגע, אני צריכה להכניס את
חשוב.
יש לך קומבינות עם אנשים נכונים.
תדע לך, עוזי כהן סידר אותך? עוזי כהן סידר אותך? יש לי את האוזניים של הבחור.
תשמע, מה זה משנה? סליחה.
אמילי, בלגן זה הכאוס, הזיקי. הכאוס, הזיקי. יאללה, אנחנו נכנסים, תמוד עליו. אני אדבר בתמונה. שניים יש פה. טוב. בבקשה. רגע, תשאיר עודף. בבקשה. לא מסומן, בבקשה. לא מסומן? לא מסומן. ליאור. מצד השם. ליאור. ליאור. אתה רוצה עכשיו שאתה לא אומר 012 תמיכה טכנית אפשר לעזור? מישהו גנב לי את זה. עלינו. הספר אצלך, חתימה אצלך, זה הכי חשוב. לא, אני רוצה תמונה, אתה יודע, עם האוכל בהתאבון. הולך לתפוס אותו, אנחנו צריכים אתה יודע מה הוא אמר לי מקודם?
אני אדבר כמה משפטים בעברית לפני שאנחנו נתחיל. כבר התנצלתי לפני האורחים שלנו על כך. הערב הזה שאנחנו מארגנים לכבודו של לאונרד נימוי, זה אחד מהדברים שאנחנו עושים בשותפות תל אביב לוס אנג'לס 2000. שותפות תל אביב לוס אנג'לס 2000, דרך אגב שמי מיקי ירושלמי. אחד מהדברים שאנחנו עושים בשותפות תל אביב לוס אנג'לס 2000 זה הקשר בינינו לבין הפדרציה היהודית בלוס אנג'לס, לבין העיר תל אביב. במסגרת הזו יש לנו כמה ועדות, רווחה, חינוך ותרבות, ואנחנו מודדים ביחד עם הפדרציה שם חילופים וקשרים ופרויקטים משותפים בין העיר לוס אנג'לס לבין העיר תל אביב. אני מופקד על החלק של התרבות. אנחנו במסגרת הפעילות של התרבות עשינו בשש שנים האחרונות כ-30 פרויקטים בתחום המחול, בתחום התיאטרון, בתחום המוזיקה. אני אגיד לכם שתי מילים על פרויקט שאנחנו עושים בעוד שבועיים או בעוד חודש, סליחה. בואו תיכנסו חבר'ה ותשבו. פרויקט שאנחנו עושים בתחום הקולנוע, זו השנה השישית, עכשיו אני מניח שכולכם אנשי קולנוע, שאנחנו מקיימים סדנאות בקולנוע, שבהם אנחנו מביאים...
שלום, ערב טוב. זוהי זכות וכבוד לי להציג בפניכם את האורח לאונרד נימוי, שהגיע לארץ יחד עם רעייתו, סוזן ביי, נכון? סוזן ביי? That's the name? כן. ואני חייבת להגיד שהיה לי העונג. I was asked to speak in Hebrew, so you'll excuse me, but you understand already. You understood me very well last night. So anyhow, I היה לי באמת העונג להעביר ערב מקסים בחברת האורחים אתמול, והמדובר הוא באמת מעבר לעבודה האומנותית והדמות שאנחנו מכירים מהטלוויזיה והקולנוע. מדובר באמת בשני אנשים מקסימים שלא שמעו על המושג נפוח, פשוט תענוג וסקרנות של ילדים, וזה כבר עושה כל מפגש למפגש טוב. בקצרה אני אעשה, דרך אגב, מי שקורא את הארץ או לא קורא את הארץ, על כל פנים מתפרסם היום ראיון יוצא מן הכלל עם לאונרד נימוי של גואל פינטו, שנותן, פורס תמונה מאוד יפה של הקריירה שלו, עם הגפים של הימים חסרי העבודה, שהוא היה מחוסר עבודה, על התקופות הקשות שעבד בכל מיני עבודות מזדמנות, וגם על מה שעשה לו להחליט לעזוב את המשחק, כי זבובים ואבק וחום במרוקו עשו לבן אדם... מה לא בסדר? מה?
אוי ואבוי. אוי ואבוי. חילול הקודש.
נו, באמת. תגיד, רגע אחד. לא, אני שואלת אותך.
לא.
וואו. חבל שזה בלי סאונד הצילומים שלכם, אה? אז יקיריי, אז בואו בקצרה. אני אגיד את זה עוד פעמיים. לאונרד נימוי נולד, תראו, דברים יכולים להגיד את זה בקלות, נולד ב-1931, כן? בנם של מהגרים שהגיעו מרוסיה. הוא התחיל להופיע על הבמה כבר בגיל 8, בגיל 20 הוא עבר לקליפורניה ומיד התחיל לעשות סרטים, לאחר מכן סדרות טלוויזיה רבות. באמצע שנות ה-60 הוא הופיע לראשונה בתפקיד מיסטר ספוק, שבאמת הביא לו תהילה וגם אושר, שלקח את שני הנתונים האלה, תהילה ואושר, והתחיל לעשות בהם דברים טובים על מנת לקדם מטרות חשובות ומפעלי תרבות. אנחנו נשמע אודות העבודה הקולנועית שלו במפגש הזה, אבל הייתי רוצה להזכיר צד פחות ידוע של לאונרד נימוי. הוא שיחק בתפקידים וקריין בסרטים, תוכניות טלוויזיה ורדיו שהוא הכין על מנת ללמד ולשמר את התרבות היהודית. לדוגמה, רק השנה הוא קריין בסדרת רדיו בת 26 שעות, כולל הפקת סרט, והוא שיחק בתפקיד ראשי בסרט טלוויזיה משנת 91 שנקרא לעולם לא אשכח. זהו סרט המבוסס על סיפור אמיתי של ניצול מחנה ריכוז שטבע קבוצת מכחישי שואה אמריקאית. זה סיפור שהוא התפרסם שניצול מחנות ריכוז, הקבוצה הזו של מכחישי השואה אמרו לו, בוא נראה, אם אתה מביס אותנו אנחנו נשלם לך $50,000 כדי להוכיח שהשואה לא הייתה ומעולם לא הייתה. והוא הרים את הכפפה והם ניסו להתחמק כל הזמן מלשלם לו. בסוף הוא טבע אותם וכמובן זכה יהודי טוב כמו שאומרים, ועל זה עשה מר נימוי סרט. ומה עוד אני יכולה להגיד לכם? אוקיי, הוא צלם סטילס מאוד מוערך. הוא הוציא ספר שנקרא שכינה, שעוסק בעצם בגוף הנשי, בעצם בצד הנשי של אלוהים. אז בפעם אחת שאתם אומרים, או גוד, תגידו, או מיסס גוד, כן? ואני ראיתי אתמול אפילו כמה צילומים של הצילומים האלה, והם יפהפיים, ועבודותיו מוצגות בגלריות ובמוזיאונים ברחבי ארצות הברית. מה עוד אני יכולה להגיד? שאנחנו אסירי תודה לפדרציה, רגע, אנחנו אסירי תודה לפדרציה של היהודים בלוס אנג'לס, שבאמת בשיתוף עם שותפות תל אביב לוס אנג'לס שבראשה עומד מיקי ירושלמי, העשירו את חיינו המקצועיים פה, את חיינו, מעשירים את חיינו האומנותיים, בעיקר באמת בתחום הקולנוע, הסדנאות האלה. מי שעוד לא נרשם שירוץ וירשם, כי אין לזה מחיר, זה פשוט אחד הדברים החשובים שנעשים פה בשטח הזה. אנחנו באמת מודים על הבאתם של האורחים, על נוכחותו של מר נימוי, שבאמת מצא זמן, חלון בתוך הסדר יום המאוד מאוד צפוף שלו, על מנת לבוא, להציץ ולראות מה אנחנו עושים כאן, לתרום מעט מהידע והניסיון שלו. Welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for coming and being with us. תודה רבה ו-God bless you. יורם מנדל, סליחה. יורם מנדל אני כל כך הייתי נרגשת מזה שאני מציגה את האורח החשוב, אז הנה בבקשה. יורם מנדל הוא המנחה הערב, והוא מנהל את, איפה אני אגיד לכם בדיוק מה, תפנית משקפיים, את מחלקת הפיתוח של JCS, מפתח תסריטים, גם לטלוויזיה וגם לקולנוע. בקנה יש 9 סרטים באורך מלא. יורם מנדל מעביר קורסים בכתיבת תסריטים בבית הספר סם שפיגל ובאוניברסיטת תל אביב, והיינו כאן לפניכם. תודה רבה.
Good evening, ערב טוב. קודם כל אני מבקש ממי שעוד לא קיבל טלפונים לכבות טלפונים. Mr. נימוי, I would like to start with telling you to share with you an anecdote that happened to me a couple of days ago. I was watching materials preparing for this evening, and in one of the clips that I got on a DVD, the DVD was faulty, and I had to actually watch it without sound from me. And all of a sudden I see Mr. Nimoy standing in front of a group of students, very much like here. And for a while I thought it was a documentary. And then I thought to myself, and in the documentary he's standing and lecturing about his experience as a Holocaust survivor. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what you did, and what I think you do, is you don't act out characteristics, but rather act character. And you became so much the role that for a moment I thought it was you, as Mr. Nimoy, rather than the character. And I think it was quite a tremendous thing for me to realize. And what I would like to do is use this evening, really, to discuss the process of making something your own. And I would really appreciate if you come up on stage.
Thank you very much. I must thank you. Your Hebrew is excellent.
דרך אגב, בסוף הערב תהיה קבלת פנים למטה עם קוקטיילים, אתם כולכם מוזמנים. אני גם אשאיר זמן לשאלות בסוף. אם מישהו יש לו קושי בהבנת האנגלית, אתם מוזמנים לעצור אותי. But we will conduct this evening in English. I would like to start really by talking a little bit about how did you come about to start directing films, and maybe we'll start with that.
My directing career was almost accidental. I never set out to be a director. 25 years ago, when I was teaching acting classes before Star Trek happened, people would often say to me, "You should be directing." And I was insulted. I thought it was a comment on the quality of my acting. So I never took it seriously. I did occasionally direct it here and there. I directed occasionally in the theater, but I never saw myself as having a directing career. However, we finished making Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which was quite a good film with Ricardo Montalban. And at the end of the film, my character, Spock, died gloriously, saving the ship and the crew and so forth. I thought that was the end of it. When I took the job, I assumed that this was going to be the last Star Trek movie. And when they suggested that Spock would have this glorious, heroic death, I thought, why not go out in a blaze of glory? And we did it. And then at the end of the film, when the film was previewed, they had some misgivings because the audience was not happy with the idea that Spock was dead. So they laid in some footage to suggest that Spock might return in another Star Trek film. And after the film was opened, I got a call to come to the studio, and I was asked. The question was put to me: we'd like you to be involved in the next Star Trek movie? What would you like to do? When we made Star Trek II, I was given what are known as pay or play commitments, 2 other jobs that they would commit to me, either use me or definitely pay me. Now, they only had one to offer me. I was paid for 2. The one that they offered me was a woman called Golden with Judy Davis and Ingrid Bergman. And I did that here, spent a month here doing it, and I was thrilled to do it. I was disappointed that they didn't have a second job for me because I was looking to broaden my career. And when I came to talk to them about Star Trek III, they said, we'll make you the same deal, but we have no other projects for you right now. So I said, that means you'll be sending me checks. And the money was generous, but I was looking again for some other interesting challenges. And I said, if you want me to be involved in the movie, perhaps I better direct it.
And how did 3 Men and a Baby?
Well, I directed Star Trek III. They then asked me to do Star Trek IV, which I did. And before Star Trek IV was finished, the heads of the Paramount Studios, Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner, left Paramount to go to work at Disney. And when I finished Star Trek IV, they invited me at Disney to direct 3 Men and a Baby. That's how it happened.
Because you see, here in Israel, normally people make the films that they write themselves. And I think that it's really interesting for us to see how the system in the States works differently.
Very often to get a directing job in the United States, the best way to do it is to write a great script.
But then again,
make yourself indispensable. You say, if the studio wants the script, you say, you can have it, and I'm going to be the director. That's the way it works.
Now, when you did get 3 Men and a Baby, it was, for those of you who don't know, it was a remake of a French film called 3 Men and a Cradle, and that was the translation intended. What was the process by which you worked to actually really make it your own? Because here it is a film that has been done in French. What was the mental process, professional process, if you want to?
When I came on the job, the 3 major actors were already cast. The lady who made the French version, Colleen Serrault, came to Los Angeles with intentions of making the American version.
Is that there was something about the energy level that you chose, which is so specific American and couldn't have been done, I think, in any other country without looking ridiculous. And I think that energy and that that joy, I think.
We're in another country. Thank you.
I meant if anybody else tried to do it in their own countries.
I should. Clear. Okay. Thank you. This was a very fortunate experience. The script that I was given had originally 3 scenes introducing the 3 major characters, one for each. And the idea was that the Selleck character was having a birthday party, and we would see each of the 3 characters talk about that as an introduction to the film. So, for example, Ted Danson, who was portraying an actor, would be seen leaving the stage door of a Broadway theater and saying goodbye to his colleagues. I've got to get home, it's my roommate's birthday party. And Steve Gutenberg would be at a bakery shop picking up a birthday cake and saying, this is for my buddy, I've got to pick it up and for my buddy's birthday. And Selleck, who's a construction architect, was at a construction site and says, I've got to get home, my buddy's throwing me a birthday party. I thought it was a very dull way of introducing the 3 characters. And my wife, Susan, had brought me to a contemporary art showing downtown Los Angeles just before we left LA to go make this film. And I had seen some panoramic work by an artist named Red Grooms. And it had this great energy that you're referring to, and with a lot of different elements to it that told a lot of story in an energetic way. So when we began to work on this process, I contacted the writers and I said, give me 15 or 20 little vignettes of the three guys in a sort of a comic atmosphere in which they're interacting with a lot of different women, so we get a sense of a lifestyle. It's all about women coming in and out the doors. I was thinking about farce comedy, where a guy is involved with two women, keeping them separate one from the other is the joke. And one is coming in that door, so he's got to push this one out that door to hide her just in time. The timing of the doors is crucial for the comedy. So with that in mind, the writers gave me these vignettes, and I went to Peter Larkin, who's a brilliant producer.
Brilliant tilt at the beginning. Was that already in the script stage, or was that done during the shooting? At what time did you come up with that, and how did you work with the director of photography?
The reveal of the baby?
Yes.
Yeah. It was a choice I made during rehearsals. His name was Adam Greenberg, and he was the cinematographer on A Woman Called Gold. So, and I had enjoyed Adam and trusted him. I knew his work, and I liked his work. This was the first time he worked as a union DP in the United States. He had been working on non-union jobs prior to this, and he said to me, Leonard, I'm nervous because if this doesn't work, I cannot go back to working non-union, and I may not get another union job. So his career was on the line, but the picture did well, and Adam's career fortunately took off.
It's still making films for all of you then. Okay, let's go to the next scene, which is the female help.
Okay, yeah. A lot of elements in it that speak to me about my personal experiences and about my vision of what was going on culturally, and I think what is going on culturally in the world vis-a-vis male versus female.
I think that very often we seem to think that in comedies themes are not dealt with properly, and I think that actually the opposite is the truth. That comedies very often deal with themes that would be difficult to deal with otherwise, and I think that is definitely a brilliant way to discuss that theme. But using the thought of theme, I'd like to talk a little bit about The Good Mother, because I found The Good Mother to be a wonderful film, but also a very courageous choice of method to deal with something that is so delicate and difficult in American society. You see, here I reverse what I said before, in the sense that it's almost like you made a European film in America. The subject matter, for those of you who don't know, is a love story between a mother and a divorced mother, a single mother with a daughter. And she has now a new boyfriend who is Irish. And coming from a different culture, he feels very loving, very free, and in a way acts quite differently than what the American society would expect. And that, maybe you should let you tell us.
Well, you're right. The choice is an interesting one, and unfortunately, this film did not work in the United States at all. The reason being, very simply put, the film does not have a happy ending. It doesn't work out the way an American audience would like to see the film work out. It is also a very interesting look at a cultural condition. It's a story essentially about a divorced lady who has a child, enters into a passionate relationship, where she did not have a passionate relationship with her husband, her ex-husband. She now finds herself in an extremely passionate and exciting relationship with this guy, and he, because she has decided she wants to raise her child in a different way than she was raised. She wants to raise her child with more openness and a more liberal atmosphere. He takes on her attitudes and makes the mistake of sort of stepping over the line culturally from what an American audience would expect, and as a result, she loses custody of the child. My choice in making the film was to make a statement in condemnation of the repression that creates the problem in this movie, and unfortunately, audiences simply did not enjoy seeing the film because it's an unhappy ending. and therefore the message, if there is one, wasn't well received.
Well,
But
I
think it's
for
really-
one, love this film.
I appreciate that a lot.
And,
Let me just say, I think the script and the performers were brilliant. There was no rewriting on this script from the day I got it. I loved it, and it attracted a wonderful cast. Diane Keaton, Liam Neeson in his first major role, Jason Robards, Ralph Bellamy, Teresa Wright, James Naughton, wonderful cast all the way down the line, signed up because they believed in the quality of the script.
And I believe that the direction also brought out of them this wonderful performance.
Thank
Let's
you.
watch a couple of scenes from that.
איזה מילים פרשנות יש מנימוי לסצנה של אותו מתאר? כל כך כל זה אחר. היית באיזה קלות או זה? לא, רק הסרט.
The next scene, the only thing I'd like you to remember in the next scene is that Liam is not the father, because that is actually what the whole film, I think, is centered around. Because when I watched the scene, I remember thinking it seemed completely natural to me, except he's not the father. Let's watch the bathroom.
But the unhappy princess couldn't decide which of her many suitors she wanted to marry. And her father, the king, was not. One king, right?
Are you sure that's the king?
Of course I'm sure that's the king as well.
Talk a little bit about that scene and how it sets up.
You know, the scene is intended to show us the intimacy that has developed as interesting you comment about the fact that he's not the father. A family unit has been created, and the intimacy of the scene helps us understand that. I can't help but stop to tell you a story about Liam Neeson's Irish accent. When we were casting for the film, we saw a lot of people. And I had met him in Toronto when I was up there making 3 Men and a Baby, and he was working in a movie with Cher. And we had him come in and we tested him. And I thought he would be successful in the role, and we showed the film to Michael Eisner, who was head of Disney. And he said, hire him, he's theatrical, he's interesting, he's good looking and talented, and let's hire him. So we did. And shortly after I hired him, I got a call from him, and he said, hello, Leonard. This is Liam, and Leonard, you know, this is a great opportunity for me, and for a real move forward in my career. And I'm just wondering, you know, I really do a very fine American accent, and I wonder if you'd mind if I do it as an American rather than with the Irish. And I said, no, Liam, I want you to be the Irish person that you are, because I think that's really a wonderful part of the charm of this story. He says, American audiences don't take too well to people with foreign accents, you know. And I said, oh, Michael Caine and Sean Connery. I said, all right, he said, I'll take my chances with you. I think it's wonderful in the movie.
I think it is too. And I think that we'll see that I think the next scene shows the following one. Let's look at the next scene.
I'm okay. How are you doing? Good. How are the kids? Oh, they're great. Good. Ryan?
Amazing. What I think is really powerful in that scene is that it's so, in a way, simple, and even the way she drops the bag at the end. It's totally spare, and it's directed so clean and so simple, which I really think is brilliant. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, the scene breaks my heart. It's I suppose if we see enough of this film moving forward, we'll understand what really is going on here. But I'll tell this story. But Leo tells the attorney when it comes to the discussion in the lawyer's office with Jason Robards that he was taking a shower when Anna was away, and the child saw Leo naked and said to him, "Is that your penis?" Leo, trying to behave in the way that he thought Anna, the mother, would want him to, instead of being confused or upset or hidden or negative about it, said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Can I touch it?" And he said, "Okay." And that's the whole story. That's what happened. And that's what brings about, evidently, the child, when she goes away to spend some time with the father, tells the father, I touched his penis. And that's what leads to the issue in this film. So this scene, we shot at a home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is where the author of the book, the film is taken from a book called The Good Mother. And I think the environment adds so much to the scene because it really is the neighborhood kind of feeling that the book is about and the lifestyle that she has, that she's living. And I think the performances are fabulous.
Oh, brilliant. I would actually ask you to show the scene if you don't.
Sure, go ahead.
I think it's so
Be my guest.
Well, Mr. Cutter, I got through some of this on the phone, and I think it would help me find out just what it is that's got Mr. Dunlap so fired up here.
In the sense that you allowed long takes, you have a credit as one of the story creators.
Yes.
And you were very involved from the start. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about? And
when Star Trek 3 was finished, just before it opened, I got a call from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was head of production at Paramount, and he said, "We'd like you to make us another film." And the first thing I did was ask for permission I wanted a little bit of money to go spend some time with some scientists to discuss future potential science. And I contacted 3 scientists in the United States, one in California and 2 were at one at Harvard and one at MIT on the East Coast. One of them, Philip Morrison, just passed away about 2 weeks ago. He's a brilliant astrophysicist and one of the founders of the SETI Institute, which is SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It's a program they set up to listen for signals from deep space that might be radio signals that might give us some sense of an intelligent civilization out there that was putting out radio signals. And I spent some time with Morrison, a wonderful hour, during which I said to him, there's a film called The Day the Earth Stood Still, some years ago, and he remembered the film. And there's a scene in it where there's a character played by Sam Jaffe who represented the Einstein of the period, and a major scientist who was having trouble with a particular scientific problem, an equation that he could not solve. And it was illustrated by a very complex equation on a blackboard that had an equal sign at the end, empty at the time. He sees the equation, studies it for a moment, and simply chalks in the answer. When Jaffe sees that someone has resolved the problem, he knows that he's in the presence of a superior intelligence. And he says to Rennie, when he meets him, there's a lot of questions I'd like to ask you. The suggestion is, I said to Philip Morrison, that people who come from another planet probably are an advanced civilization. They have answers to questions that are troubling us. Tell us how to cure cancer, for example. Whatever the questions might be. How do you deal with overpopulation? How do you deal with climate control? How do you deal with pollution of the atmosphere? How should we deal with the ozone layer? So I said to Morrison, if you were in the presence of a superior intelligence like that, what questions would you ask? And he got very agitated. He said, it's not going to work like that. He said, if we contact an alien intelligence, they probably won't speak English. They probably will not have gone through the issues that we've gone through. They come from an entirely different atmosphere. He said, it may take years, if forever, before we can even understand each other and communicate with each other, let alone answer mundane questions like, how should we live our lives? So I got it. I said, thank you very much. As a result of that meeting, that conversation, I decided that what we needed was to deal with extraterrestrial communication of a kind that an audience might not expect, that an audience might not anticipate. And then around that time, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about the possible extinction of certain species on the planet, and the subject of the humpback whales came up, and they have this mysterious song that they sing, these sounds that they make, whistles and cracks and moans, and we've never been able to determine exactly why they do it, whether it's navigational, or whether it's sexual, or whether it's territorial, or what it is. And they pass this song from one pack of whales to another around the planet. It's a fascinating study, and a beautiful mystery is what it is. And that's where the idea came from, to have a probe approaching Earth, putting out these sounds that we finally discover are whale song, and those sounds are intended for the whales in the ocean and not for human ears. And the problem is that in the 23rd century, the humpback whale is extinct because we have hunted them to extinction. And now this probe, which has been communicating with humpback whales for centuries, has lost contact. So the sense is, you call a friend who you speak to every day, and one day there's no answer. So you call again, and finally you become concerned, and you go there to see what's happened to your friend. And the probe is coming to Earth to see what's happened to the whales. That's what the picture is.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, and also for those of you who have, you remember there's usage of actually documentary footage of how whales were slaughtered. And I think it is put in such a delicate way that one hardly notices, but it definitely makes it well. Let's take a look at the scene. הקליפ הבא זה ההתחלה של 2.
How was it in Star Trek 4, you both directed and acted? How was it as an experience to, I remember a famous picture of you with the Spock costume directing the cast as the Klingon ship arrives back to Earth. How was it?
Not something I would choose to do necessarily. I really think it takes, it's two jobs. It's two jobs. Particularly difficult for me because the Spock makeup takes 2 hours. And I'd have to be on set as a director at 7 o'clock in the morning, which meant that I'd have to be in the makeup chair at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it extended the day by that 2-hour time, and it was very demanding. I managed to get it done, and when I finished directing the 2 Star Trek films, I went to work on 3 Men and a Baby, where I was not acting. I was greatly relieved.
Good morning. I'm your guide this morning. My name is Dr. Jillian Taylor, but you can call me Jillian. I'm Assistant Director of the Maritime Cetacean.
There are a number of these coming up, and I'd like to point them out to you. The basic shot was done at the Monterey Aquarium in Northern California. The buildings are all there, and this walkway is there. There is no water in this grotto at Monterey. It is an empty grotto, just simply with rocks. And the special effects people put in the water for me, and they added, you'll see here some movement of this which is the whales in the water. They added this walkway here as a way of creating an exposure. They added the city of San Francisco, which you cannot see actually from this vantage point. They said, would you like some clouds? I said, sure. They gave me some clouds. Now our crew is going to come out of a doorway here and walk over to a railing. When they get to that railing, we will no longer be at the Monterey Aquarium. We will be on a set at Paramount Studios. I'll show you that as we move along. Let's move ahead, please.
This is the largest seawater tank in the world, and it contains the only 2 humpback whales in captivity. They are mature humpbacks, weighing 45,000 pounds each. They wandered into San Francisco.
Okay, we are here at Paramount Studios on this stuff was built on the parking lot. Our production designers went to the aquarium in Monterey and shot photographs and took measurements and recreated this section of the railing in the background and dug a tank, which you'll see being dug shortly, actually in the parking lot of Paramount Studios. The whale piece going by is a there's a mock-up section of Humpback Whale, which you'll also see being built shortly. Let's move ahead.
Beautiful, aren't they? And extremely intelligent. Now, if you'll follow me, please.
Studios in Hollywood. We discovered that many years earlier there had actually been a water tank here. Our production designers went to the old blueprints of the studio and found it, and they dug it out and recreated the pool. This is a section of the Humpback Whale being built by the Special Effects Department, operated hydraulically. I think there were 3 major sections built: this tail section, head section, and a couple of fin sections. Without the craftsmanship of these people that made these things, and some others that you'll see further down, we could not have made this movie. This is the track that goes down into the tank, and these sections of whale will run on that track. And here's the first day of testing of that section of whale, and with the scuba divers going down underneath with the mock-up to make sure it runs successfully on the tracks. The idea is we come back to the 20th century to pick up a couple of humpback whales. Serious work being done here. This is in that same tank.
No way to reach it. You go on ahead. Close the hatch. Under them. We'll be out. Go on.
This is actual humpback whale footage shot off of Hawaii. We'll see how some of these underwater shots were done. I think they were interesting. This is the way the storm was created, with wind machines, rain machines, wave makers. The underwater shots of the humpback whales were really a great accomplishment. They're done with radio-controlled miniatures. You'll see how that's done in just a moment.
Next.
And now, here's a much better way to see George and Gracie. Underwater.
This is at Monterey. This is not. The previous shot was at the aquarium. This is not. Let's pause here, please.
Hearing is recorded whale song.
Pause. Thank you. No, okay. This is interesting, I think, and very interesting what's to come. This is a group of people that we use as extras around Bill Shatner, and they're on a soundstage at George Lucas's studio in Northern California, and they're looking at a blank wall. The vertical posts are put in by the special effects people, and the image of the whale on the other side of this glass wall was also created elsewhere and then superimposed in this picture in post-production. Now what's going to happen is we'll see reverses of this. We'll turn around the camera and put on the faces of these people, and when you see the faces of these people, they will be at the Monterey Aquarium looking past the camera at a brick wall. There's nothing there for them to look at. So it's going to call for some interesting acting, particularly on the part of Bill Shatner. I think let's move ahead. Move ahead.
By the male. He'll sing anywhere from 6 to as long as 30 minutes and then start again.
They're looking at a
In
brick
the ocean,
wall.
the other whales will pick up the song and pass it on. The songs change every year, and we still don't know what purpose they serve.
This was photographed elsewhere. This was photographed
Are they some kind of
in a tank in
navigational
Southern California.
Could they be part of the mating ritual?
This was done about 3 months
Is it pure
later.
communication beyond our comprehension? Frankly, we just don't know yet.
Maybe he's singing to that man.
What the hell?
And the sense of humor too. Let's take some time for questions. Are there any film students or directors here in the room? Masterclass people? Any questions?
I have been a director in video, and for the good of acting, I have not done it. I think that's a good thing. Lately, I've been spending my days teaching in a high school some very, very positive film students, which I hope will be going into the colleges and universities. My question is this. When you're working, I promised myself not to mention Trey, so to that end, I'll also say that I was privileged to see you on Broadway in Necklace, and really, really appreciated the chance. Anyway, when you're working in a program where the message of the program is extraordinarily strong, what I mean is that in Trek, in the 60s, you couldn't talk openly on television about certain issues that were troubling American society, which was very far from being perfect, you see. But if you take it and you put it somewhere else and make it somebody else's problem, then it's easier. And it's also a way to slip it by networks and people who would otherwise not be happy with it. The question is, when you're acting, you have to go beyond the how do you, or do you go beyond the part that you're acting Spock or anybody else? And how much of the overlaying message and the idea of getting something across much stronger than the show itself? How does that affect your acting?
Well, thank you. The science fiction has always been a theater where we could deal with the good writers could deal with contemporary issues in a distant setting, in an analogous way that would have an impact. And a lot of our episodes did just exactly that, and I think that's what made the series really worthwhile. People ask me if I enjoy science fiction. The answer is I do not enjoy nuts and bolts, what I call nuts and bolts science fiction, about the equipment and the fighting and the ray guns and the sabers, swords and all that. God bless George Lucas. In fact, I think some of you thought he was coming here today.